Biden, Bernie, and Beto. Those names top the list of potential 2020 Democratic presidential candidates. And that's a long list they lead. Right now, more than 20 Democrats are showing interest. Here's something interesting about today's poll. It's from Iowa Democrats, the state that will be first to vote in the 2020 caucuses. So joining me now to talk about all of this is MSNBC political contributor Jason Johnson, who's made a lot of predictions about this election coming up, and New York Times op-ed columnist Bret Stephens. Thanks for being here. Jason, we have these new polling numbers. However, Iowa caucus is more than a year away. A lot of changes. Do you think that these top three we're hearing right now are going to remain at the top the closer we get to 2020? No one thought Donald Trump would ever be where he is right now.
No, because at this point, 2 or 3 years ago, we were talking about Ben Carson and Jeb Bush, and Marco Rubio was going to be the new dynamic leader of the United States. So I don't think these early polls matter that much. I think the most interesting thing, Gigi, that I really saw was how few people knew about Beto O'Rourke, how few people knew about Kamala Harris. A lot of the names that are very popular in the media are actually unknown to local activists in Iowa. So there's going to be a lot of this is going to be determined by name ID. A lot of this is going to be determined by how much money people can raise. And a lot of this is going to be determined by how the president is doing. And we're going to see an interesting list of people probably make their decisions sometime around, February, March of next year, especially depending on what the environment looks like.
And at the same time, voters tend to idealize people that they don't know anything about. Bret, there was another poll by progressive group MoveOn.org where Beto actually beats out Biden in terms of getting some of the liberal votes. Now, a lot of these poll respondents are saying they don't know yet or want someone not listed. Do you think the field is still wide open, and can Beto really capitalize on this so early on?
No, naturally. Look, I agree with much of what Jason said, with one important exception, which is that I think Biden is still very much on the fence as to whether he's going to run. And seeing his name, at least at the top of one poll, is probably going to push him in the direction of jumping in. So that's, in that sense, I do think these early polls are significant. I think they're significant for a second reason too, Gigi, which is that it looks to me, just judging from that poll, that Democrats understand that the #1 task of their nominee is to beat Trump. So they're not necessarily looking for the candidate who excites them the most. I don't think that is Joe Biden, but they are looking for someone who has the seasoning, the maturity, the experience, that he's not going to be cowed by Trump in any debate, where he can stand up and be commander-in-chief from day one.
But, Bret, I have to ask you, seasoning, experience, those things are all important. But, you have Biden, who's going to be close to 80 in 2020. I hate to be ageist. Same with Bernie Sanders. Is that going to be a factor, do you think?
Look, I don't know. I think that just depends entirely on Biden's health and vigor. You've now have, I mean, look, the age definition, when I was a kid and Reagan became president, I think at 69 or 70, that seemed absolutely shocking. Now Trump, I believe, is the oldest president. So our thinking on that score has, I think, evolved very healthily, by the way, quite dramatically. If Biden is healthy, and by the way, if Biden chooses a young, vigorous running mate, someone like Mitch Landrieu or someone like Beto, his proposition to the American people might be, elect me for one 4-year term, and my vice president will run for the second term.
And there's a lot of talk that might happen. Jason, we're talking about Biden, Bernie, Beto. Where are any women? It's supposed to be the time, one would think. Do you think it's even a possibility?
I think you're going to have a lot of different women run. Whether or not they're actually going to be effective remains to be seen. Look, there shouldn't be any caveats when somebody's running for president. I don't think that Joe Biden, this is just like a couple years ago when Joe Lieberman and John McCain said, hey, maybe we'll just run for 1 year. The American people don't want negotiation. They want a president who's going to serve for 8 years, which means if you're very old, there's going to be some concerns with it. I also think the #1 way that out parties fail is they go for the nominee who they think can win, not the one that they're passionate about. That's how you get your milquetoast, lukewarm candidates like Mitt Romney. That's how you ended up getting John Kerry. The Democrats need to find someone that's going to actually excite their base. So that means it may be somebody like Beto, even though I don't think he necessarily has much substance to him at this point. When you talk about women, Amy Klobuchar, I guess, but nobody seems to know who she is. Elizabeth Warren, I just saw her speak at Morgan State on Friday. I think she's very dynamic. People talk about Kamala Harris. I don't think she has much of a chance. I think that her criminal justice record in California is going to dump her. I think people are overlooking somebody like Stacey Abrams, who arguably, compared to Beto and Gillum, both of whom lost, she had her race stolen in Georgia. So I think she should be on the topic of people's list if they're thinking about possible VPs. So we're still a year and a half off. There's going to be a lot more names that possibly pop up, maybe even a state representative that we haven't even heard of yet. But the Democrats would be wise to let as many people run as possible in this race. A bigger field means a longer conversation and dominating the news cycle against Trump.
All right. Very interesting. Jason Johnson, Brett Stevens, a lot to look forward to. My thanks to both of you.
Thank you.